Aloha, you're listening to Chad Ford's NBA Big Board on the Locked On Podcast Network. The college basketball season is finally underway, and I've got lots of first impressions of the top prospects in the draft, including Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero, Jaden Ivey, and more. Let's go. Thanks for making NBA Big Board your first listen. Every episode, we are free and available on all platforms. And this episode of NBA Big Board is brought to you by McDonald's. Proudly serving communities since 1965, McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. And I'm loving the start of the college basketball season. As somebody who loves the NBA draft, this is the time of the year that I get most excited. And really, we had some really impressive debut, especially from some of our freshmen, especially some of the guys at the top of our big board this year. And I want to talk about all of that. I've been watching tons of college basketball, watching some synergy, really trying to get my handle on our first exposure to the top guys in our big board from the college basketball class. And I got to say, again, like there's some really impressive prospects here. I think overall, this could turn out to be a really great draft class. Not sure how it's going to catch the 2021 draft class, which has just been absolutely stunningly awesome, maybe like historically awesome, at least in the early going, the first month of the NBA season. But lots of great college players to talk about today. Going to focus primarily on the freshmen. Going to talk about some upperclassmen as well. And you can read more about my takes over on my website and newsletter, NBABigBoard.com. Go over there to subscribe today. We'll be able to, whenever I have an update, be able to put it in your inbox that morning. You can find our podcast columns over there. Do a weekly Tuesday column that really breaks down a lot of the rookie of the week, the sophomore of the week, the draft prospect of the week, and more. Actually did a deep dive this week onto can NBA rookies actually help teams win and what it's saying about this class, the 2021 NBA class, all over at NBABigBoard.com. All right, look, let's start where I think everybody's really interested right now, which is at the very top of the draft. Two guys, Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero, really sort of duking it out right now for the number one pick in the draft. There's going to be other guys that are going to be in the mix, like Jaden Hardy, for example, but it's really Holmgren and Banchero that I think have the early favorite and a lot of split among NBA scouts about which of these guys is going to be better. Both of them have really good nights. Let's start with Paolo Banchero because he was on the major stage playing against Kentucky at the Champions Classic, 22 points, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 blocks, 7 for 11 from the field. Wrestled with some leg cramps throughout the game, which limited his minutes somewhat. But overall, I think everybody was super impressed with the skill level at a player that's 6'10", 250 pounds. He plays more like a guard and just has a really great feel for the game. Showed he could score really anywhere that he wanted to on the floor. Also played really intelligent defense for Duke and just popped. He looked every bit the part of a number one pick in the draft against a really formidable foe, the Kentucky Wildcats. Were there some warts? Yeah, a couple. He missed all 3 of his 3-point attempts, and that's certainly something that will add a lot of appeal for him. I think he's a good but not great 3-point shooter. I'm not sure exactly what he'll end up with at the end of the season, but it's certainly the better he shoots the 3, the better his chances of becoming the number one pick in the draft are. And, he got worked on the boards a little bit, as Duke did in general, by Kentucky there. But I think everybody sort of came away for a first game in Madison Square Garden against a formidable opponent like Kentucky. This guy really lived up to the billing, and certainly I think earned his spot as a potential top 2 prospect in the draft. Chet Holmgren out of Gonzaga played against Dixie State. Not quite the competition that Kentucky was for Duke, but his stat line was insane. 14 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 7 blocks in this game. He also had 5 turnovers. Got to mention the good with the bad. And he's, again, everybody that's watching him, I tell everybody, when they're asking me who do you go watch, I'm like, watch this dude because he really is unique. I've never quite seen a player quite like him before. I've never really seen a player that has his versatility with his length, his mobility, his size, and also he's incredibly skinny and thin, yet he plays with toughness, and those two things don't typically, go together right now. He sort of reminds me in some ways of a young Kevin Garnett, and that's very, very big praise, and in part because I just don't think his body is going to get much bigger than it already is. He's just going to be one of these guys that's going to be lanky, but has strength and toughness and motor and all those other things. And that was a huge stat line. Obviously, Dixie State is not the most formidable opponent for Gonzaga, and I think everybody is excited to see them playing in Las Vegas on the 29th. They're going to go head to head. Banchero, Chet Holmgren, and Gonzaga. And one of the things that I think is interesting, I had several people kind of pop into my my Twitter feed and say, "Oh man, after watching Banchero, he's going to crush Chet. There's like no way that he's going to be able to hold up." Somebody said Banchero was going to eat Chet's lunch, and this is just a reminder for listeners who don't follow the high school basketball world that these two players have actually matched up head to head most recently in the Iverson Classic, and both of them actually played really well when they played head to head. But Chet Holmgren actually won the MVP of that game. His team won, and he was the MVP. And I think if scouts, probably kind of came away without saying, they kind of played themselves to a draw. But if there was a preference, it was a slight preference for Chet. And when I was putting together my big board, which is based off of talking to NBA scouts and general managers, they had Chet ahead of Paolo. And so I think for those that are looking and saying, hey, 250 pounds versus 190 pounds, I think you're going to forget about Chet's toughness. You're going to forget about his length. And if Banchero has a weakness in the past, it's been that sometimes that length and that quickness and mobility does give him problems. And so I'm really looking to this matchup. I think it's going to be just incredibly fun and awesome to watch this all throughout the entire year. But to see them head to head is as special as you get. The number one, number two prospect in the draft. At Jalen Duren out of Memphis, the number 4 prospect on our big board 1.0, also had a great start Tuesday versus Tennessee Tech. 15 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 blocks, 7 for 10 from the field, 3 turnovers. He was doing all the things that Duren does, running the floor, dunking the basketball, using his size, strength, and athleticism to dominate on both ends. He's not necessarily the most skilled guy. He doesn't have Banchero's skill set yet, which is why he's a little bit further down. But he does sort of combine the body of Banchero in a longer, more athletic version of Banchero with a 7'5" wingspan. He definitely sort of has the length of Holmgren and a little bit more of the athleticism of Holmgren in the sort of bigger frame of Banchero, but not quite the skill set there yet. So I think you're going to see him dominating in the middle, but I'm not sure that we're going to see the level of fluidity. I doubt we're going to see the level of fluidity that we see from Chet and Banchero when it comes to playing on the perimeter. And I think that's what makes them so special as bigs. And the NBA is trending away from bigs, but when you have bigs that are this versatile, your mind starts to go to Evan Mobley and think about what Evan Mobley is doing right now for the Cavs, and he's looking like a superstar. And I think those types of bigs have a way of being able to transcend things in the NBA. I actually think Holmgren probably is the guy that is the most apples to apples comparison to Mobley, because Banchero's thicker and stronger than Mobley, but doesn't have the sort of length and quite the agility that Mobley does. Maybe that's not quite as apt of a comparison. But it's really interesting that in a draft that's been obsessed, an NBA that's been obsessed with finding wings, you're looking at bigs all the way across the board at the top, and that includes Jabari Smith Jr., our Big Board ranked number 5 out of Auburn, 6'10", 210, 7'1" wingspan. He goes against Morehead State on opening night, 8 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 1 block, 2 for 3 from 3. This is going to be the Patrick Williams / Scotty Barnes guy, where he's probably not going to put up the numbers that some of these other guys are going to do. But when you're looking at long-term upside of who could end up being the best player in this draft with just the complete package of skills, Jabari Smith Jr. to me enters into that conversation with sort of the right combination of all of the things that are going for him. But I'm not sure that he's going to play nearly as big a role at Auburn as those other prospects are, which may lower his production a little bit. And so I don't compare him to Barnes or Patrick Williams in that they're the same players or skill set. I think Jabari Smith Jr. Closer to Patrick Williams than he certainly is to Scotty Barnes. But just this high upside, but maybe not high production player that could maybe end up leapfrogging some other guys just because teams are going to gamble and bet on upside. There's one other player. He's actually not eligible for the 2022 NBA draft, Emoni Bates, who I think is, if he were in this draft, and he's not, but if he were in this draft, would be a top 5 pick and someone that I think really had a great start for a player that is 17 years old, goes against Tennessee State, 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 6 for 9 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, only 2 turnovers. Look, he's rail thin. He's not necessarily an explosive athlete, but NBA teams are obsessed with wings and wings that can play multiple positions on the floor. And his shooting and ball handling and his ability to actually play point guard even as a player that's 6'9" is really, really intriguing. I think that certainly a guy that if he were in this draft would be in the top 5 conversation. I don't know that his lack of length and explosive athleticism would allow him to get up into the number 1 spot, but maybe because positionality matters in the NBA and he does play the right position. And so definitely somebody that we'll be watching all year and scouts are really interested in following, but not necessarily a guy, like I said, that we're going to see in this year's draft because he doesn't turn 19 before the end of 2022. Okay. When we come back, I'm going to talk about a number of other of our potential lottery picks in our Big Board 1.0 that impressed, and a couple that, had rocky starts. We're not going to read a ton or overreact into the opening game of the season, but it was a tough start for them. Before we do so, let's talk about McDonald's. This episode of NBA Big Board is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect, a place where classmates can meet up for a study group, knowing that they have fully dependable Wi-Fi and endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, the home team or the away team can come to recharge. It's the place you always look forward to stopping by on a long road trip to rest with your legs and refuel. I'm a crazy McRib fan. It's McRib season right now. I've been pretty stoked when I get to McDonald's. I get that McRib. I've already been several times. I've downed some McRibs. They're in limited quantities. They don't stay around forever, so check them out. If you haven't had a McRib, McDonald's, go there, refuel, reconnect. Did somebody say NBA Big Board watch party? It's McDonald's. I'm loving it. And we are back talking first impressions from our 2022 Big Board from the college basketball players. Most of these guys we're talking about are freshmen because freshmen dominate every draft, and that's certainly going to be the case this year with as many as 19 freshmen that could be potential first-round picks in this year's draft, and they're absolutely dominating the lottery as well. You can read more about all of them over on our website, NBABigBoard.com, our newsletter. Sign up for that. Get in your inbox whenever I write a new story about that, get in-depth player cards, lots of great stuff happening over at NBABigBoard.com. Okay. Well, we talked about guys that are sort of the top 5-ish type of prospects. Let's talk about some of the other guys that were potential lottery prospects based off of our big board rankings. It starts with Patrick Baldwin Jr. out of Milwaukee, the freshman who is being billed as maybe the best kind of bigger shooter in the draft, a guy that can really stroke the basketball, has a beautiful jump shot. Playing for Milwaukee because he's playing for his dad. So at a smaller school, he should be able to put up big numbers this year. And some of those numbers you're going to have to take with a little bit of a grain of salt because, again, Baldwin playing in the Horizon Conference, not the ACC or the Big 12. Tuesday versus North Dakota, 21 points, 10 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block. 6 for 14 from the field, only 2 for 7 from 3 turnovers. So the jump shot wasn't falling the way that we sort of expected it to. But I think you're going to see this guy taking 8 to 10 threes a game. And he was 7 for 8 from the free throw line. The 10 boards, I think, was a positive number for Baldwin as well. He is just going to be a little bit harder to scout because we're not going to get to see him with the same level of competition as some of these other prospects right now. But if you're into 6'9" guys who can really stretch the floor and shoot the basketball, he's a really, really intriguing prospect. J.D. Davison, the Alabama freshman point guard, who is right up there with Damian Collins of Kentucky, to me, to being the most explosive athlete in this draft. Big board ranked is 10. Has a draft projection right now of 10 to 20. Coming off the bench for Alabama because they have a pretty veteran backcourt right now. 12.6 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, 1 for 2 from 3, 2 turnovers. He's got Ja Morant type athleticism. He's so explosive, and he can handle the ball. He can pass the ball. He can shoot it a little bit. He played 26 minutes, so even though he's coming off the bench, I think he's getting a significant role at Alabama. If he keeps up this sort of level of production, if he's really keeping a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, if he is going to be sinking a couple threes a night, he's going to move into the top 10. I don't think there's any question because the athletic tools are just absolutely elite. Another point guard, but maybe he's a wing that I've been really high on and scouts have been really high on is Peyton Watson out of UCLA, freshman wing, 6'8", 7-foot wingspan. Big board rank is 13 on our latest big board. Draft projection for him somewhere between 10 and 20. Tuesday versus CSU Bakersfield, 7 points, 5 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block, 2 for 11. Shooting field goals, 0 for 5 3-pointers, 3 turnovers. Yeah, it was a mess. It was a very, very ugly start for a prospect that we knew was going to come off the bench for UCLA, but we saw him giving a pivotal role. He took 11 shots coming off the bench. He just really didn't hit any. I don't think that that's what we're going to see in the future for him. NBA teams again love these versatile 6'8" wings. He's got the length. I don't think we're going to see him going 0 for 5 every night shooting the basketball, but definitely a sort of rocky start for him. Adrian Griffin Jr., who's ranked number 11 on our big board, only got 11 minutes for Duke. He's coming off a knee injury. I think they're working him slowly back in the system. 2 points, 2 rebounds, 1 for 3. Didn't look very good, to be honest, out there for Duke, but he's rusty, and we sort of expect that coming back. And this is a guy who missed significant time, both his junior and senior high school years with injuries as well. And so one of the things NBA teams just want to see is the fact that he can be and is gonna play healthy. I also want to talk about the only non-freshman that's playing in college basketball that made our lottery. And that's Jaden Ivey out of Purdue, a guy who really came on towards the end of his freshman season at Purdue and then was co-MVP for Team USA in the under-19s, which they won gold medals for as well. 11 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, only 1 for 5 from 3. Not the start that we thought for a guy who already has an NBA body, who has a little bit more experience under his belt, really struggled shooting the basketball. Just wasn't an impressive night for him. And, he to me is a prospect that I personally really, really like. I think that he has a chance to be an absolute star in the league. There's like some Dwayne Wade-esque to his game. That's sort of who he reminds me of a little bit. The jump shot's always been the question. He actually was an okay shooter in high school. Didn't shoot the ball well as a freshman at Purdue. Didn't shoot the ball particularly well for Team USA either in the under 19s. 1 for 5 rocky start for the night. I like that he took 5 threes. If Jaden Ivey can get that number up to 36, 37, 38%, I think that he's going to be a top 5 pick in this draft and maybe even a sleeper for the number 1 pick in the draft. But he can't be having nights like this. I think, we sort of expected him to come back as a sophomore and start at a much better place than he did. And so he was probably one of the bigger disappointments of the night for me with Peyton Watson. Also one of those guys that just didn't quite light it up the way that I thought he would, or that we all sort of thought he would in the early going. It's one game. We're not going to overreact. We're not going to throw our hands up in the air for these guys as well. In fact, we're not doing anything. I already see like some big boards are starting to shift or whatever after one game. We won't do anything with our big board again until December. Give it a month. And let's see where everybody's at, and then we can start sort of making our reactions. We do that so that we're not overreacting. Our big board was put together based off of the feedback from NBA scouts and general managers, and we try to say, okay, these were the feelings. We're not going to like throw that out the window with one game. So, sometime in early December, we'll come back. We'll revisit that when everybody's had a chance to get a few more games under their belt. So nobody's moving anywhere right now based off of that. Look, when we come back, I want to talk about several other freshman prospects that were in our Big Board 3.0 and a couple of sophomores as well that made pretty big impressions on opening night. You're listening to Chad Ford's NBA Big Board on the Locked On Podcast Network. Did you know that Built Bar has many delicious flavors? There's something for everybody. When we talk to a Built Bar fan, they're definitely passionate about their faves. If you don't know the Built Bar flavors, well, you're missing out. There's coconut, there's cherry barcia, there's raspberry, there's mint brownie, there's double chocolate, there's salted caramel, there's strawberry, there's orange, cookies and cream, German chocolate. My personal favorite, longtime listeners know, is coconut. Chewy, tastes like a Mounds bar, absolutely delicious. And here's the thing about Built Bars. They taste like a candy bar, but they're actually pretty healthy for you too. Most of the flavors have 15 to 17 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180 calories, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Order today. Get your grasshopper cookie, your raspberry, whatever you like. Built Bar is also the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCK15. You'll get 15% off your first order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. All right. Well, we are back, and we're going to wrap up our sort of first impressions for this freshman class going forward. Several other guys that I want to talk about that I think got off to some pretty good starts, and a couple that didn't. Let's actually start with somebody who struggled a little bit. TyTy Washington out of Kentucky, a guy who we flirted with putting like at 11. He ended up at 15. Was where we finally decided that where he should go on Big Board 1.1. But the buzz out of him from pro days, from NBA scouts that were in the gym, 6'3" with a 6'9" wingspan, good ball handler, great shooter, can stretch the floor, was that this kid was going to be the real deal, and maybe sort of like a Tyrese Halliburton type at the next level, and he struggled. 9 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 3 for 14 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3-pointers. That's what TyTy Washington did against Duke. And look, he just looked physically overwhelmed. He's not an elite athlete. He doesn't have elite strength and size. And part of the reason that he looked so overwhelmed was because of who he was playing against that night, which was Tyler Keels out of Duke, who did not make our top 30. In part, he was. There was concerns about his conditioning. We'd heard from Duke that he lost weight, but this was a 6'4", 240-ish pound guard, And yeah, I think scouts liked him, but we weren't really sure what to do with him. He's down to 221, and man, he was awesome for Duke. 25 points, a rebound, 2 assists, 3 steals, 1 for 4 from three. Played in attack mode all night. Built like a tank. Was just an absolute terror going to to the basket. On defense, gave Washington fits. He just didn't really know what to do with it, though you can see the huge weight differential, why that might be the case. He just looked every bit the part of a potential lottery pick, and he's only 18 and 18 and 3/4 on draft night. So still a very young guy, though he looks like a man. I mean, he's built, like I said, like a tank. But a guy that I think if he continues this, and we'll see, not everybody who has a huge opening night is going to turn out to necessarily be a star. But if he's doing this consistently from November to December, he'll be in that range of potentially being a lottery pick, actually. Other guys that I think played well, I really like Kennedy Chandler out of Tennessee. 20 points, 1 rebound, 4 assists, 4 for 4 from three. Probably the best pure point guard freshman in the draft. Certainly somebody that I liked quite a bit. Brandon Huntly-Hatfield also plays at Tennessee. 7.6 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks in just 19 minutes. A guy that, again, has the versatility of a forward to play the three in the floor, can handle the ball, can stretch it a little bit. Definitely a sleeper to crack. Big board 2.0. Harrison Ingram out of Stanford. 16 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 for 2 from three, 6'8", 230, 7-foot wingspan, great size for an NBA wing, has toughness, has a great feel for the game, can shoot three, excellent passer, not an explosive athlete, kind of like Trevor Keels, isn't going to explode off the floor, but has the strength and just the sort of savvy. Stanford prospects typically sort of underperformed. We saw that with Zaire Williams last year. I think that was really encouraging that he got off to the start that he got off for Stanford. I also want to talk about Matthew Cleveland out of Florida State. Didn't have a big game, 9 points, but long, fast, athletic, explosive, hot motor, good mid-range game. 3 still a bit of work in progress, but a guy that I think is going to, again, came off the bench for Florida State, but a guy that I think we're going to see in that lottery conversation by the time we get to the end. If there's anything we've learned from Florida State, is that they kind of hide guys a little bit from the NBA, and you got to pay close attention to them. And everything that I'm hearing right now coming out of that Florida State program is very, very high on Matt Cleveland. Let's talk about 3 more sophomores because there are some sophomores that are really intriguing. Bennedict Maturin out of Arizona, a guy that some argued might be up there with Jaden Ivey as a potential lottery pick. Rocky start, 8 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, only 0 for 4 from three-pointer, but good size for a wing, definitely gets it done. Definitely a 3-and-D type guy. Mid-range game is where the question mark is for him right now. Rocky start to begin the season. Not so for Keegan Murray out of Iowa. 24 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, 5 blocks. 3 for 4 from three. We knew Murray could get it done on the defensive end. He was never really the focal point of that Iowa offense as a freshman. Now he's going to be the focal point for Iowa. So I think a lot of scouts were looking in anticipation of how's he going to handle that? Can he handle that? And off to incredible start for Iowa. I thought really one of the best stat lines of the night for anybody, especially those 5 blocks. I'm not sure we're going to see 5 blocks every night from Keegan Murray, but you understand. Caleb Love out of North Carolina, a guy that I really liked as a freshman before the season began, was a potential mid-first round pick based off of what he'd done in high school. Stunk up the court for almost the entirety of his freshman year at North Carolina. Wanted to get into the draft, but really didn't see any path to getting there. Comes back to North Carolina. Much better start for the start of the season. 22 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. If Caleb Love is able to really do that for North Carolina this year, he'll move back into the first round conversation as well. Well, look, that's an early look at the 2022 NBA draft, their first games. We'll be following all these guys all season long. We'll be breaking down their games, talking about their draft stock. And of course, we'll start diving deeper and deeper into the draft as we go along as well. So stick with us over here at NBA Big Board and follow us at NBABigBoard.com. Subscribe today. And thanks for making NBA Big Board your first listen every time that we do an NBA Draft podcast. You will listen to Chad Ford's NBA Big Board on the Locked On Podcast Network. Aloha.